just to make sure.
Actually, Jennifer, I did have two questions, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
On the last page there, it says throughout the city, provide additional incentive programs to attract businesses which will increase the city's tax base, thereby helping to fund public improvements, et cetera, et cetera. What kind of additional incentive programs can we do? I thought we were kind of limited in that infrastructure.
I think we're talking about the BEF. We're talking about a deferment program for their development fees, those types of things.
Business enhancement factor.
Got it.
And then the downtown has very specific incentives that are not available anywhere else in town. And they are, if they provide certain bonus items, they get bonus square footage. If they provide affordable housing, they get bonuses. So there's some specific incentives just for downtown.
Okay.
And that's all in 1835.
Thank you. The last one is sustainable development practices. In the last paragraph there, can you define sustainable development practices for me?
There actually is a definition of sustainable development that was adopted, and I don't have it right in front of me. Adopted by Planning Commission.
Yeah, I was in on that with the Planning Commission.
Yes.
It was awfully vague.
And so I can forward that to you.
I'd be grateful because development practices, and that's something specific. And I wonder if it wouldn't pay to mention that in here. I'd have to take a look at it first. Because they're going to raise costs. And my question is always, what's the justification for that? Is the goal worth the added cost? It's an economic analysis to balance one with the other. And I'd like to look at that based on what Joanne sends me, if I may. The other thing I wanted to say about this was I thought it was well written. Thank you.
And that's all the tearing apart we're going to do.
Okay.
Joanne, deferral of impact fees.
Yes, the next agenda bill will be to hold a public hearing, and I'm hoping that you'll have an ordinance adoption that evening to change the municipal code in order for us to have the deferral program of impact fees. Planning Commission will be holding their public hearing on it tomorrow night, and they will be forwarding a recommendation. Based on their work sessions, it's anticipated that they'll forward a recommendation of approval, but until they have their public hearing, and they may get some public testimony that would change that. However, their recommendation will be included in the agenda bill for April 5th. Again, an additional comment came in since I last spoke to you from Killian Pacific LLC in support of the amendments.
Questions?
Joanne, I asked you that last week, and I think that answer is right. But once we collect it, that's when that 6-year window opens up.
Yes,
It doesn't make any difference whether it's at the front end or the back end or the middle. As long, once we collect it, the calendar starts.
I confirmed that with the city attorney. He said yes.
Other comments, other thoughts? We're moving on.
Okay,
Impact fee deferrals.
Yes, this one is the actual agreement that I'm recommending that we adopt as our actual program. And there are a lot of comments in here I'd like to discuss so that I have a good understanding of what council wants to do. And on page 2 of the actual agreement, there was the recommendation by Councilmember Shoemaker to remove the words prior to, and so it would just say that we're deferring payment of traffic, park, and impact fees until sheetrock. So I wanted you to note that change from the last time we talked. The second part, which is more of an issue that I want to have some clear understanding of, is that there was a lot of discussion at the last work session of when we would defer the payment, particularly residential. I had in there sheetrock inspection, however, Councilman Russell desired that payment to be deferred to closing. He also had indicated that he wanted a consistency between residential and commercial. If you go with consistency, it would be, we'd be deferring it to certificate of occupancy, not to closing. I do have a note in there that we discovered a builder had moved in. I need to correct that. We misunderstood that. They moved furniture in. They have photos on the wall. They have art on the wall, but they have indicated to us they're not living there and not staying there overnight. However, that has occurred in the past, and there is the potential for that. Again, my recommendation still stays the same for residential, that it occur at time of sheetrock inspection. But if council would like to defer it to further down the road, I really encourage you to do it to calling in for a final occupancy inspection, not to closing. You can see that we have many properties that are out there that haven't sold yet. People, and then we have the issue of what do you do in a situation with a residential where, I'll use an example, the condominiums up in Lookout Ridge. They were intended to all be sold. They've never sold. They're rented out. So would we, even though there's an impact there, would we not collect the fees because the structure never sold? So I just want you to think about those things, and so, and also mention that the BIA said that the deferral of the 12-month period worked very well with the commercial developers. So if I could just hear a little more from council on the timing of deferral for residential.
I think it certainly makes sense to tie it to a certificate of occupancy, especially in the case where somebody is just, for sake of argument, doesn't have to take out a loan in order to build a house, but pays all cash out of hand. There wouldn't be any closing in that case. And so, but he would always have to have the certificate of occupancy, if I understand correctly. So that's the one common denominator that all building would have, right?
That's the common denominator between residential, industrial, and commercial,
Right.
yes.
Right. That seems to make sense to me.
I like the idea of delaying until closing. The problem I have with it is that the builder doesn't have any incentive to get moving and to get it completed.
Would sheetrock be, if for lack of any other terminology, the sheetrock portion, would that be incentive enough for him to keep moving?
I think it's better than closing. I think it's too soon. It doesn't give enough
Benefit time?
time, a delay for the builder to build up some interest to avoid some interest that would be, that would attract him to do it.
What's the difference between occupancy and closing then, Joanne? I mean, how much time frame would you put there?
Occupancy,
Right now, it could be substantial.
it could be a year in between. We have many that have received certificate of occupancy, but they never sold.
Right.
And we have the condos that have never sold. They're being rented and people are actually in them, living there.
So for that occupancy part of it, you said that's the common denominator, but
Yes.
if we went back one more step back to the sheetrock theory, does that give us a more guaranteed collection of that impact fee versus at the occupancy time?
It does, however,